Recently, we had a little issue which we have resolved with one of our mining companies whose lease had expired after 30 years, and it was our desire to take it over and use Ghanaian expertise to be able to also exploit that resource and let the benefits remain in our country. Happily, we reached an amicable resolution to work together to transition that mine into Ghanaian ownership. But it leads me to what my thoughts are, that we must have an indigenization program for taking control of some of our natural resources.
And in fact, until we are ready to see that, maybe we should even stop the mining. We should stop producing those things that God has generously put on and under our land, till we can learn to use it properly for ourselves. And did you know that a lot of these foreign companies, when they have these concessions, then turn around and subcontract, or rather contract the actual digging out of the product to Ghanaian firms?
In the heart of West Africa, one of the continent's most significant gold-producing nations has just seen a dramatic shift that no one saw coming. This move, made far from the bustling capital of Accra, has the potential to reshape not just Ghana's economy, but also the future of mining across the region. For over 3 decades, one of Ghana's richest gold mines was controlled by a powerful foreign company. But in an unexpected turn of events, that long-standing relationship came to a sudden and shocking end. What triggered this bold move, and how does it connect to an important meeting between Ghana's new president and Burkina Faso's leader, Ibrahim Traore? What lessons can we learn from this decision? What mistakes were made, and why did the government feel it had no choice but to take action? Stay with us as we uncover the surprising answers and explore why this development is catching everyone's attention. Deep in the lush hills of western Ghana, about 300 kilometers from Accra, lies the Damang gold mine, a site once full of promise. For years, it stood as a shining example of foreign investment in Africa, symbolizing the hope that the country's rich natural resources could spark progress and create jobs. But as the years went by, the reality turned out to be more complicated, with local communities paying the price, while foreign corporations raked in the profits. For years, hospitals remained poorly equipped, schools were underfunded, and roads were in disrepair. Despite the vast wealth extracted from the land, very little of it ever returned to benefit the people of Ghana. The frustration simmered quietly, generation after generation. While the wealth of the nation was shipped overseas, the everyday lives of Ghanaians seemed to stand still, leaving the people with a sense of betrayal. Back in the early 1990s, Abaso Goldfields Limited, AGL, a subsidiary of South Africa's Goldfields Limited, entered into an agreement with the Ghanaian government. Under the terms of this 30-year lease, AGL took 90% of the profits from the Damang mine, while Ghana was left with a mere 10%. This agreement, typical of the time, mirrored a system where African countries were expected to supply raw materials, while others took the profits. But Africa, and Ghana in particular, has changed. With a history of resilience and rebirth, Ghana had not forgotten its potential. As the lease on the Damang mine was nearing its end in 2025, the country's approach to foreign business was about to shift. This time, the government didn't automatically renew the lease. Instead of passively extending the same terms, Ghana made a bold statement, one that would echo across the continent. On April 18, 2025, the Ghanaian government took control of the Damang mine, formally ending the 30-year partnership. The reign of AGL was over, and the mine's wealth was once again in the hands of the people of Ghana. But this was more than just a change of ownership. It was a declaration that Ghana would no longer blindly accept unfair deals. This wasn't about reacting out of nationalism or populism. It was a carefully considered move, grounded in law and a vision for the nation's future. Ghana's message was clear. Foreign companies wishing to operate in the country must prove their worth. They must show a commitment to long-term growth, ethical practices, and respect for the country's laws. A GL, however, had failed on several crucial fronts. According to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, the company violated essential mining regulations. There was no clear plan for future production, no evidence of proven reserves, and no justification for a lease renewal. Worse still, AGL's own internal reports from 2024 revealed that active mining at the Damang site had stopped in 2023. Instead of investing in exploration or growing the mine, the company had simply been processing leftover materials. In essence, AGL had given up on serious mining. The company had stopped funding exploration, drilling, or any form of development for the mine's future. It seemed that they were simply milking the last of the resources without any plans to reinvest or help the country's long-term development. They were treating the mine as a dying asset, not a living, evolving one. For Ghana's leadership, this was unacceptable. They had learned the painful lessons of past mistakes, the dangers of automatic contract renewals, misplaced trust in foreign companies, and deals that left local communities impoverished while companies took vast profits. This time, things would be different. Ghana made it clear: no foreign company, no matter how big or powerful, would be allowed to continue exploiting the nation's resources unless it could demonstrate a real commitment to ethical practices, investment, and respect for the country's laws. Ghana had had enough of giving away its resources out of fear that it might scare away investors. No more blindly following old colonial practices or letting outdated agreements dictate its future. This time, Ghana chose strategy over submission, pride over dependency, and sovereignty over appeasement. This wasn't just about rejecting a bad contract. It was about setting a bold new standard for how the wealth of Africa would be managed, protected, and shared not only for Ghana, but for the entire continent. In fact, Ghana's decision to take back control of the Damang mine wasn't just an act of defiance or patriotism. It was part of a larger, carefully planned transformation that the government now calls its economic reset. After decades of deals that favored foreign companies, while Ghanaian communities saw little benefit, the government decided it was time to make a change. For years, foreign firms had enriched themselves with Ghana's resources, while the local population continued to struggle. But with the Damang mine, a powerful message was sent. Ghana would no longer automatically renew contracts simply because that's how things had always been done. No longer would the future of the country's resources be decided in secret meetings. Foreign corporations would no longer be allowed to exploit Ghana's wealth while leaving behind broken promises, environmental damage, and economic gaps. From now on, any foreign business operating in Ghana would need to show that it was creating value, not just taking it. As part of this shift, the government restructured Ghana's gold trading system. In a historic move, foreign companies were banned from directly engaging with the local gold market. Instead, all gold, including from small-scale miners, would now be bought, sold, and exported exclusively by the Ghana Gold Board, a government-run entity. This meant foreign brokers could no longer buy gold at unfair prices and send it abroad unchecked. In addition, all gold transactions would now have to be made in Ghana's local currency, the cedi, and priced transparently based on official exchange rates set by the Bank of Ghana. Regaining control over the country's most valuable resource was a strategic and deliberate action. The government also allocated $279 million to support the Gold Board's operations, with the goal of purchasing and exporting 3 tons of gold every week. This ambitious plan aimed to break up illegal trading networks, boost foreign exchange reserves, strengthen the cedi, and keep more of the gold profits within Ghana's economy. This approach made perfect sense. For far too long, Western investors had funded their own goals using African gold, leaving local communities with polluted rivers, depleted land, and broken promises. Now, Ghana was tightening its grip not out of hostility, but out of respect for itself. For Africa to rise, it must first take control of its own wealth. At the same time, Ghana stepped up efforts to crack down on illegal mining, locally known as galamsey. This sector had long been plagued by corruption, environmental destruction, and the exploitation of vulnerable workers. The crackdown wasn't just about enforcing laws, it also involved more military presence and stricter environmental regulations. The goal was to protect Ghana's natural resources from foreign exploitation and to reduce the chaos caused by illegal mining. All these changes added up to a complete overhaul of Ghana's gold industry, which generated over $11.64 billion in economic output in 2024 alone. But protecting revenue wasn't the only goal. Ghana was determined to shift its position in the global mining economy from a passive supplier of raw materials to an active player shaping its own wealth. Foreign investors and government officials around the world are already feeling the ripple effects of the Damang decision. It's making them rethink their assumptions. The era of easy profits is coming to an end. Ghana has made it clear that it will no longer accept an economy built on foreign exploitation and local poverty. But it's important to note that Ghana's economic reset isn't about shutting out the outside world. It's about engaging with the world on Ghana's terms, at last. Ghana's bold move to reclaim the Damang mine was just one part of a larger movement sweeping across Africa. More and more African countries are challenging the old system that drained their resources for the benefit of others, while their own people stayed in poverty. What started quietly is now growing into a more confident rebellion for change. Africa is making a bold and united move to take control of its own resources. The continent is saying clearly that its wealth should first and foremost benefit its own people. In Tanzania, under the strong leadership of President John Magufuli, the government tore up unfair mining deals that heavily favored big international companies. In 2017, the country accused Acacia Mining of underreporting gold exports and dodging huge tax payments. Rather than giving in to outside pressure, Tanzania demanded $190 billion in back taxes and forced a new deal that gave the country a much larger share of its mining industry. Inspired by this example, other African nations followed suit. The Democratic Republic of the Congo changed its mining laws in 2018 to increase taxes and royalties and to require government ownership in key mineral projects like copper and cobalt. Despite fierce pushback from major global companies, the DRC stood firm, showing it would no longer allow foreign investors to take advantage of its resources. Zambia took action as well. After years of poor management and broken promises, the government took control of Konkola copper mines from Vedanta Resources, sending a clear signal. Leadership failures and neglect would no longer be tolerated. This movement has only grown. Countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, once closely tied to European mining interests, have recently taken major steps to reclaim control of their gold resources and have even expelled companies they believed were exploiting them. The message is no longer hidden, it's being shouted loud and clear. Africa is done giving away its inheritance for next to nothing. Ghana's current economic changes are not isolated. They're part of a larger effort across the continent to break free from outside control. It's a powerful statement that Africa's resources should finally serve its people, not just fill foreign bank accounts. From Zambia's copper to Mali's gold and Congo's cobalt, what's happening is part of a growing wave of change. Even as Ghana pushes ahead, it knows this path isn't without challenges. The Ghanaian government has promised a smooth transition at the Damang mine. Officials say workers will keep their jobs, local service contracts will be honored, and strong safety measures will be followed. Still, conflict is brewing. Goldfields Limited, the parent company of Abaso Goldfields, is unhappy about losing its lease and claims its rights were violated. It plans to challenge the decision through international arbitration. This could lead to a long legal fight between Ghana and the company. But Ghana isn't backing down. Leaders are confident that everything they've done follows the law and is in the country's best interest. They aren't looking for approval or trying to make last-minute compromises. This time, an African country is standing tall, unafraid of international courts. It isn't apologizing for taking control of its own affairs. Ghana's battle over Damang, its fight against illegal gold trading, and its push for economic independence are part of a wider story. Across the continent, African leaders are rising up. They're setting their own rules. They want fair partnerships or none at all. And they're no longer willing to play second fiddle in deals about their own natural wealth. They're taking control of their own future. There will be legal struggles ahead, and the economy may face some turbulence. It's not easy for the old powers to step aside. But the line has been drawn, and Ghana is clearly on the right side of history. The days of dependency and fear are over. Those who have stood up and said enough are the ones who will shape the future. Do you think Ibrahim Traore has the ability to inspire African leaders, helping them understand what's needed for their countries and for a united Africa? Could Ghana's decision to reclaim its gold mine have been influenced by his meeting with the president? We'd love to hear your thoughts on whether this wave of true independence is spreading across the continent. Drop your comments below. And if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit the bell icon and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and make sure to check out our next video.